You know, the Belgian Devils are playing tonight, so it's also 2 times 3 quarters. We're playing Russian, so it's about to start. Good, let me introduce myself. I'm Niklaas Deboutte from Meta Architectuurbureau. We're located in Antwerp. We're a mid-sized office. And we did different kind of projects in size as well as in programs. We don't have any specializations, and that's the way we like it. So when Juliette Beckering asked me to give a lecture about making architecture, of course, making is not thinking about architecture, but it's making architecture. So it's rather a bit about the physical aspect of our job, and it's especially about materialization and detailing. So that's what I'm going to focus on. First of all, to understand our office, you have to understand the Belgians. So let me say that we have kind of per complex. That's we're very grounded, in contact with the earth, very physical and heavy. So that's probably one of the reasons why we like the Veldreden cyclocross, because it's dirty, it's working, it's physical. So you know that say that every Belgian is built with a brick in the stomach. So that's why we have all our private, our own house. And in a long tradition, we all did our own project with a lot of beauty and poetry as a result. So this is very Belgian. You see it, still see it, although it's been changing because we have what we call a verkaveling. It's because Belgium had this kind of urban sprawl spread all over Belgium, so we're really trying to reduce and to live again together in the city. To understand the Belgians, of course, and talking about football, it's not in color, but believe me, this is Belgium against Holland, always a very delicate and sensitive thing. But there's a difference in attitude between the Belgians and the Dutch. And probably one of the main reasons is that in the tradition, and that becomes also part of the DNA, in the tradition of building in Belgium, the bricklayer is the smart guy. He's the guy who's dimensioning the building and who's the guy who's to be concentrated and focused. And then later on, the carpenter puts windows in it and puts a door in it. And that's how we build. But in Holland, the smart guy is the carpenter, because normally you start with the windows, you place them, and the bricklayer is just filling it in, and it's a different way of thinking. And it has also a result on the way we look at buildings and the way you look at buildings. So I have been teaching at the TU Delft for 12 years, and we already knew it before because we had been working with Dutch engineers' offices, and we noticed that there's a big difference. So to give you a little anecdote, that's about 15, 20 years ago, we were building a villa, single house, of course, here in Belgium. We were working together with ABT, who was responsible for the structural part. Very good office, very smart guys. And I still remember the guy, Ruud Koetsier was his name. And he made a proposal for the building, and he made a steel skeleton, and then we worked on a cladded with bricks. First of all, you won't find a contractor to make a steel structure, because steel structures, it's for the industry, and we don't have a culture making steel structures for private houses, so that's impossible. And secondly, we don't like buildings who sound like that. It should be solid. We want solid building. Make it in concrete. And it has twice a huge cantilever. He said the concrete is going to be 25 centimeters thick. He said that's a lot of material. I said, yeah, that's the way we like it. So I really had to convince this. He thought a lightweight construction would have been much better. No, we like it solid. Another thing, and it's recently happened, and I thought I was a joke. I was teaching and talking with one of my students, and he wanted to make a building, pour it on the side. A Dutch student. I love the test. Very, very good. Must be my influence. And then the structural engineer who helped them to translate it, said, no, we're going to do it differently. We're going to make a steel structure and make prefab concrete, and we were talking about prefab, that's reflex, not on the side, but prefab. Prefab concrete slabs and clad it with concrete. I said, you're joking, you're joking, eh? It's a joke. And no, I said, it's serious. I said, no, you won't have me. And serious, that's the difference. For us, it's very weird. We do cladding, if in certain cases, but it's not in the DNA to do it. So the difference between the both of the cultures. So in that context, you should situate our office meta. So I will explain to you a little bit. It's part of the DNA because it's a DNA about making architecture, not thinking about architecture. So, as Juliette already mentioned, a long time ago, it's a pity that the date is not on there, because it's something which has been written a long time ago. I think most of you weren't born yet, and when we started the office in November 91, and as we wanted to first think and give our office a certain direction before acting. So, as you can see, but I think you will have it all on Blackboard or Brightspace or whatever, so you can read it afterwards, because it was really a kind of direction for our office, and if we reflect back, and now the office exists already for 28 years, it still makes sense. We're not ashamed of what we wrote then, and it's still, if we check our buildings to this thing, we still say, yes, this is your DNA, that's what we wanted to do at that time. So it's about thinking about buildings, about take your time. That was the first building we built, and there was a lot of those things what we thought was important for us were already integrated. And you will see, I will give you, in this case, 6 themes, which are quite common in our oeuvre, and that you will see it also in the further 3 cases. I will explain you that you will see those themes coming back. First of all, as I told you, massiveness is a thing we like. And massiveness, that it means we believe that it has a lot of qualities. Of course, we all know that one of the qualities is sustainability. And it was given to us as a child that lightweight constructions could be, can protect you from the big bad wolf. So that's why we believe that massiveness, heaviness, lightness is good for airplanes. We believe that heaviness is good for buildings. So we also dare to claim that, imagine that the pyramids would have been made as a steel skeleton and be cladded with natural stone if we were still be talking about them today. I think not. So we claim that massiveness is a way of being sustainable. Compactness, it's when we started the office, we wanted to make architecture with a certain ambition, but for a reasonable price. It was in the early 90s, it was always, architecture with a big A, it cost a lot of money. So we didn't like it, should be democratized, yeah. Anyway, and one of the things to make cheap architecture is compactness. It's very important. A lot of buildings are very compact. And we believe also, and it's true, that the compactness is the only moment where economy and ecology are running parallel. If you make something compact, you win as well on an ecological level as well on an economical level. Another thing which is part of the DNA is the construction as the completion. In Dutch it sounds better for the Dutch. We say ruwbouw is afbouw. So it means think a bit more about the construction, so you can skip a lot of finishing layers and you see the building itself. So some people said, is it then honest architecture? I don't think architecture is honest. It should be honest, because we believe that you better tell a interesting lie than a boring truth. So überhaupt, it's always a construction, a mental construction, and always a story. So we're always forcing to make a kind of reality. Repetition. And maybe this is also related to the Dutch context, but we like repetition. Because we believe that repetition has a lot of advantages. Maybe you've ever heard about Pareto. He was, in the 19th century, a guy who was thinking about economics as well as mathematics. And he made the Pareto rule, which says that you, with 20% of your potential investment, you get 80% of the result. So when I found this, and I've always been lazy, but then now I had a good reason to be lazy, because that was my excuse. I only have to work, invest 1/5 of my potential energy, and then I have the best balance between investment and result. And of course, repetition. I think it's also a very powerful, beautiful thing. Repeating things there's some power and beauty in it. So even in this kind of context, it becomes a very poetical view. Mathematical precision. So that's something we like. It's like making a puzzle where all the pieces fall on the right spot and all find their place, and it gives us kind of aesthetical happiness. So, I'm a little bit too fast. So, a lot of things in mathematics are very beautiful and can be used in architecture. The construction of the broccoli as a fractal, and if you see then, and this is a language that architects understand, how it's the fractal is made, then you see that suddenly the poetry of mathematics. The same for, and in the early days we took it very literal. We have the system Pythagoras about the quinte and the octave, and those ratios were used in the early projects of Meta. So the black house you saw is completely built on that system of proportion. Doesn't cost more, not at all, but it gives you a kind of pattern to design things. And then empathy for the contractor. It sounds almost like a Rolling Stones song, but it's not fighting with the contractor, but trying to understand how buildings are made, how constructions are put together. So you see, they have a different way of thinking, being, and if you understand those guys and understand how they're put together, I think you can improve your building and you're less struggling and fighting with the contractor. Good, now we go to 3 cases, and you will see every time in a different balance, but also those 6 themes will come back in the projects. The project Montignystraat, it's a project in the center of Antwerp, and it's something we like to make. It's generic architecture. It's an architecture which has a very neutral expression, which has also a neutral plan, which can be used in different ways, and we have it in different scales. We have bigger buildings, we have smaller buildings. So we also call it one plan fits all. By coincidence, the 3 cases are all located in Antwerp. This one is in the south of Antwerp, so it's the 19th century expansion of Antwerp. And there was a vacant plot bought by a private investor who had a little bit of money. That's a reflex Belgians have, if you have money. Because we're very physical, we don't put it on the bank or we're doubting. We don't put it on how we call it, the beurs, what's the name of the beurs? The fair, just stock, we don't trust it. So the moment the crisis started in Europe in 2008, the building industry went up in Belgium because all the Belgians were put it in bricks, that's safe, it's the most secure thing. So same for this guy, he said, let's put it in bricks and physical things, because what you touch, that's the real world. we don't believe in cloud things and we don't trust it. So this is the same corner a couple of years later. As you can see, we wanted to get it integrated, but at the same time have it its own identity. It's the 19th century expansion of Antwerp was a lot of white plastered houses. They wanted to call Antwerp at that period also the Light City, the White City or the Light City. So, and give you a exploded view. It has a basement, a ground floor, which has a commercial function, and then we have the neutral floors on top. So this is the generic plan or the naked plan. That's the way we delivered it, and it can be used as well for office, as well for housing, and it could be changed during the ages, and it has been changed already. This is the ground floor. It has it's a very weird plot. It has a space for 4 cars, and then you say, I can only see 2 cars. When you see the section, you will understand. And now there's a piano shop on the ground floor with some, it continues also showroom at the back. And then it's an example of when it's going to be used as office or an apartment. And here you see the section, that's the little trick with the cars. It's very compact. Also, this is compact because it's having 4 cars at least on a very reduced square meters. And as I was telling you, I'm going to tell you about detailing. So this is what we call an exoskeleton. That's a kind of building system we like a lot because it gives you a lot of massiveness because the construction is outside. It's an exoskeleton where, and then you put the insulation at the inside, and you have a lot of massiveness and tectonical depth at the facade. And it's a very simple construction because it's quite simple, and and when it's simple, it's understanding how it's built, then it makes it cheaper too. That's a vertical section between 2 elements, and as you can see, the exoskeleton, that means that all the floors are supported by the facade, because there's the metal continuous and then a hard layer of insulation, which makes the kind of thermal border between inside and outside. There's a little detail of a roof where there's little inclination to give the building a end. And one of the buildings what you see later, Niklaas Deboutte, is in the same system, but with a higher ambition. And we're very proud of that, maybe going a little bit too fast, because that one is an exoskeleton with on a passive standard. So, and what the Belgian Cement Federation told us, they have been doing some research. We should be the first one who did that. The passive housing with an exoskeleton. So it has different details. The details what you see here with the continuous metal where is impossible. So we have different details for what you will see later. So very easy to build elements with a lot of repetition. Laziness is a virtue, but also reducing the cost price, because you draw it once, you think once, and then you repeat yourself. But you have to think good, because if you make a mistake and you repeat it, then you have a lot of problems. So basic elements made, and then just putting them together, and the final result from the inside is what you get is the here a small terrace with a folding door, so you can inside outside is kind of continuous space. Again, as you can see, it's ruwbouw is opbouw, the construction is a finishing. So here I have a point. Wait. Here even the bricks are just what we call calate. It's the brick from Dom Hans van der Laan. Just it's white cement, sand, some compact tuna and water, and you just paint it with a big brush. That's the way it's been done. It's very cheap and very effective. That's the ground floor with a little pass-through at the back. And that's the back facade with a view of the roof. And as you can see here, that's the entrance. That's the garage, so it's very discreet. It doesn't look like a garage entrance. So there are 4 cars in a very small, compact space. And it's part of the facade, so it doesn't disturb at all. Building O, which is being a result of competition. I think about 80–90% of the work we do is a result of a competition. I'm not a member of the Rotary. I don't play golf and I have the wrong friends. So the only thing you can do then is do competitions and hope to win. Some of them. So this was a competition for the University of Antwerp, the medical department, and was organized by Christian Boret, who was the Stadsbouwmeester at that time. And it was competition between, if you're interested, Office, Kerstengiersdal van Zeven, whom we talked about, was against them then at the time. B Architecten, together with Vaza Perovic, and then Bogdan van Broek, Leo van Broek, who's now the Vlaams bouwmeester, and then Stormer van Ans, who was in fact different category, but was the architect for years already for the university on that side. We won the competition. We were very happy. It was a prestigious project. So this is again, it's a shrouded mass. It's a very massive building, but it has a very light press around it. So, and the quote there, it's a marriage between Erasmus and poetry. It's not my quote. I have to be honest. It's come from Koen van Singel, who wrote it about the building. The building is there, and as I told you, it's sometimes a very interesting line and a boring truth. In fact, we're cheating. The building is there. But we had that map. We reused it because otherwise we had to make 3 maps. So, at least this is a virtue. Voilà. So the partie of the building is quite simple. It's a compact building again, and it's the moderator. The building is the moderator between the pharmacy, the medical, the nursery, the things, and they're all divided. And it's in the center of the campus. Sure, they wanted to have a building with a certain presence, with a kind of an icon, and which should be no front facade or back facade, because you have to get people from everywhere. So we made the ground floor quite open and very equal, and then we had 8 auditoria, 4 in the basement and 4 on the first floor, and on the top there are laboratoria, and you will see more of it next. So this is the building, and as you can see the 4 auditoria in the angled facade, and that's where you enter on the corner, so you have a double height space, and then on the top floor, it's a word I can't use, sorry. On the top floor, the laboratoria, where the facade is opening, because sometimes they need more daylight in the labs. So this is the ground floor, where you have as well here an entrance of the building as here. It's bicycle storage and the printer, and in the center there's a kind of space, or central space, where the light gets into the basement, and then you have 4 stairs connecting all the different auditoria. You will see more. So this is one of the corners with the entrances. That's one of the big entrance halls with connection with the stairs, as you can see here. And then we have a kind of scheme of switch and turned auditoria with different sizes within the middle. Again, it's complicated, eh? Things like that. In the middle, the void, giving light to, and that's one of the auditoria. Again, Rubo is Abbo, as we mentioned. We just gave a little bit more attention to the construction, so we could keep the concrete walls this way. And it's also very resistant, as we, because it's a school and it has to be resistant. So we did also a project in Antwerp Concert Hall, and then the client asked us to make something which was, and it's not a very nice word, but he called it hufteproof. So we made a nicer variation on this one. We called it student resistant. It was a bit more polite. So even techniques in the view, everything is quite basic, which is also good for the cost of the building. And the thing is organized that way that you have an entrance every time on the 2 levels of the auditorium, because the stairs in between make always connections on both levels. And then we have always a service zone here where a lot of techniques and shafts are integrated and toilets. So it's a very simple plan, but of course quite good. And this is the labos on the top floor, where only 2 of the stairs are continued. So as you can see, and I will tell you a little bit more about the skin, but the skin is perforated, so you have these pictures, and it refers to the classical school pictures where the classes are taken, and for the albums with your parents, probably all know them. But here we use them as, we worked together with Perry Roberts as an artist, and we did the perforation and use it as a kind of second layer on the building. You will see more a bit later. So this is a kind of section that gives you the idea how it functions, the building. This is the void, the central hall, where you have where all the stairs are connected to. Here you can see what we did, because the idea was to make the perforation, so it works as a kind of a sunscreen, but it also depends from how close you are. If you're very close, you cannot, it becomes very abstract, you only see holes, so you need kind of distance before you see it, because, and it's very simple. It's like what the silk screen system and for the newspapers, where you have little dots and big dots, so everything behind the panels is black, or it's a window, or it's black insulation, or water screen. And then we get the testing, of course, the mock-up for bigger projects. And when you repeat something, you better make a mock-up, so if you make a mistake, you don't make it 100 times or 1,000 times. So here you can see, and here, as you can see, the face is still very vague. It depends from the distance where you are. So the same for here, you're too close, and then you see other pictures when you're further, then you start recognizing people. And here you see also the windows integrated behind the screen. So when the building was naked, that's the way it looked like, a massive solid building. And that's a stadium where the insulation was already placed, and the water screen, a black water screen, was finishing in the further on. So all the panels, the panels have been produced in Holland. They're all numbered because you cannot mix it, so it's all been done CNC. And which is important, because it was a joke, but the joke really worked. Maybe you know what the reputation of the Antwerp people is. You know it? They call themselves senioren, so they think they're what they say. They think they're very important and the best, the highest, the best in Belgium. They say Antwerp is the city and the rest is parking. So to give a certain idea how they reflect on the other Belgians. So we already did before a building for the University of Leuven, And by coincidence, this building in Leuven was in bronze anodized metal. And in my presentation for the jury I said, we gave Leuven bronze, but Antwerp should have gold. Should be gold. They took it. K37. So this is the building we're talking about. It's a passive exoskeleton. And it's a good trick because with passive buildings, the problem is you have an enormous amount of insulation, and it has a serious effect on the language of the architecture. So in this case, we could hide the insulation very, very well. This is not a lie. This is true. There it is. In the north of Antwerp, the former harbour. And it was also the result of a competition. So this is the former harbour, and it has been changing all the time because a lot of projects have been built lately there. And the project was here. In fact, the competition was this block. We participated with a team, with an investor, because it was a kind of design and build. And we did it with Project 2, which was a very good and ambitious investor, a developer. In that sense that that's one of the only developers who likes architects. Can you imagine? So the guys were also responsible for the towers here. And for the people who know Antwerp a little bit, there are two Diener and Diener towers. There are two Chipperfield towers, and there's then Tony Fretton 2 towers. So also the building in front of the Mas was from Koolhof, was also from Project 2. So the guy always worked with good architects. But in this case, he worked with the local architects because the project was a little bit more, not from the same size as the towers. So the team was made by the investor, and it was Office, Kerstigeesdalen van Severen, NOAH, De Verder Interieur, and Meta. We made a design for the whole building block here, but finally we only won, because it was split up in 2 parts, the southern part. So the northern part, the financial offer of the other team was better, and the architecture was also acceptable, so we didn't win that one. So in the beginning, we were looking for, when we had to design together, we were looking for common themes to have kind of harmony in our system. Later on, we developed it further. In the beginning, we said we should have all the same grid. So when you see the buildings, that you will feel that there's kind of connection. So they all become family, nephews, aunts, uncles, you name it. Later on, we decided to make them all brothers and sisters, and to make it, because in material we continued later. We say let them all give a green color, and all did it in a different way. I will show you. It's very, very funny how you can use the same theme in a different way. This was the final design. As I mentioned, we only did this part. So this part is done by another team. So this building is by Office. This one, De Verder Interieur. This is NOAH, and this one is Meta. I will zoom in on our building. Give you a little bit of introduction of the others, but then zoom in of our building. So as you can see, in the building of De Verder Interieur, it's a white brick. It's a Email brick, how we call it? Glazed. Glazed, that's the name. Glazed brick, matte or shiny, and then it has green joints. So the joints are green. Then the building from NOAH has tiles, green tiles, Portuguese tiles, with a lot of nuance. And then white, the opposite, white joints. We made a building in green concrete with an exoskeleton with a frame, and the building of offices been made in glass, which has a green, yes, a subtle expression. So I give you a little bit of glass. The demand was also in the competition that you needed entrances, at least for every block at that site, the 2 private houses who have directly the front door on the street. So they wanted to have more than 1 entrance for a building block, so they're kind of direct addresses. So in this case, this one is really a house integrated in a bigger building block, because it also has a stair and a second floor. This one is an apartment. And then they have a private terrace, which is looking at the common. Maybe I should show you, because I forgot to tell you that the garden, in our case, was designed by West 8, Adriaan Geuze, and we could convince, because we thought it was a quality, that the whole garden could stay one part, although it's 2 projects, 2 investors, and that is not a wall in the middle, so there's no wall, so it's continuous. And finally, West 8 has designed the whole garden, so this kind of unification of the central courtyard. So then we have a typical floor. It's quite small apartments for the Belgian market at least, but they have been sold quite good. And in our case, because of this kind of maximum percentage of openings you can make for the passive housing, although you use triple glass and all the best, but still, because it's very ambitious, because it's also passive house standard, controlled and certified, so that was another, even a higher level. So that means that in our case that the back facade is quite closed, and that they have especially a lot of bedrooms at the back, and where you have more the living spaces, we have made it more open. This is 5th floor, and it has kind of a system with a connection with stairs on the top floor, and you have then the 6th floor is not there. And this is then a section of the whole project with the 2 levels of parking underneath. So it's made of prefab elements, and in this case there's no isotech or any element, because you cannot make it with passive housing. So we have another system where the prefab element or the floors are on the prefab element and with hard insulation, so there's no connection, it's completely disconnected. There's only a little bit of metal and just to hold the facade and for wind pressure. This is the drawing of the inside of the element. And here you can see how it works. And this is a detail where you have the element, where you just saw it with you have the hard insulation, and this is the floor holding. And sometimes there's a little bit of connection, but that's not much, just to keep it on the spot. The good thing is for this kind of exoskeleton is that you can put up all kind of like fire stairs. You can screw it, and then we'll show you how the terraces were made in this case, because it has also something not that common. Prefabrication and controlling stuff is, and then the stacking of the elements. And you see it growing. There's another detail. What you can see is because you need a lot of insulation, and so the trick was to make it hollow at the spots, so to make more insulation possible. Everything has been calculated, so it's all. And then the problem is, if you have 2 different apartments, is that you have with all this insulation and not continuous, you have kind of an acoustic leak. So there's a metal sheet here to keep the sound going from one side to another. So they're all things that you quite important for apartments. Here you can see the insulation, part of the insulation. So this is the prefab element. And then we fill it in with a window, or the system with the reduced windows for the backside. And this is also a panel with about, how much is it? Let me think about 20 centimeter of insulation. So that's the way it's been mounted. It's the inside, and that's the outside. And this was kind of experiment that worked out well, but in fact the terraces, the balconies, so the terraces, the balconies is made of one piece of aluminum. So in fact it's folded. And there's no structure, and it's just by folding that you get the stiffness, because they have the grip on the handrail who gives the stiffness, and folding makes it stiff. So there's no construction. So it's all only been folded, and then the two in the corner then has been welded to keep it together. But that's the only spot. So that's after folding it. And the good thing is it's stiff enough. So it's been and it's just been mounted and screwed on the outside structure, because this is very massive and it's a structure. So it's a very easy way to make a balcony. And that was a test. So that was before it was analyzed. We tested once first, because we repeat a lot of things. You should be sure that it works. So testing the balcony. But that's the way it works. And when it's done and anodized in gold, that's the way it looks. It's an investor who, and it's quite also rare, normally we have to fight for that, but who said, okay, everything had its limit, but he said, you know the difference between a fancy apartment and a cheap apartment? I said, no, tell me. It's the entrance hall, the common entrance hall. Because when you enter, then you feel when you're in a cheap building or an expensive building. So we could be generous to do a little bit of detail, a little bit of oversizing compared to other investors. Because he said that's what the first impression is quite important. So that's why we could detail it in a rather rich way. This is the common courtyard. And what we did, and the good thing is that we had a good understanding with the other offices who want the north side, is that we introduced a pergola, which is continuous for both of the projects. So this is part of the West 8 intervention, and that means that suddenly this building block is kind of unification, because that's also continuous. The idea is to have plants growing up. It gives a little bit of shade, but also privacy towards the apartments on the ground floor. This is the system where you see the infill with the, and it looks a bit scary because this is a window, but the sunscreens are also in gold, and that means that suddenly when it happens, when everything is closed, it becomes very, very strange. The building. Same for the front facade. It's those big. So, but the good thing is that with this was very difficult, because when you have insulation, you have to go 20 centimeters deep to put your fire stairs or fire escape. It's quite difficult. In our case, it's very easy. You just glue it on the concrete. We have the nicest fire escape from in Antwerp in gold. Very fancy. Here's the date, Antwerp, November 98. So maybe I just would like to say that the last sentence is maybe the building is a reflection. It's a reflection. It's a reflection about building. Thank you very much. That's all.